Welcome to a deep dive into the Golden State, a place often synonymous with opportunity, innovation, and the quintessential American dream. It's a state that boasts the fifth largest economy globally, surpassing even countries like the United Kingdom and India. Its gross state product, GSP, was a staggering $3.6 trillion in 2022, a testament to its economic might and the industrious spirit of its nearly 40 million residents. Yet, beneath the shimmering facade of prosperity, a deepening crisis casts a long, dark shadow. We're talking about a trifecta of interconnected challenges: homelessness, poverty, and crime. These aren't just isolated issues. They're symptoms of systemic breakdown, eroding the very foundations of what makes California golden. This video will meticulously explore the intricate web of these problems, presenting you with the latest statistics, real-world impacts, and the various perspectives on how the Golden State arrived at this critical juncture. We'll look at the human stories behind the numbers, examine the economic consequences, and discuss the political and social debates surrounding potential solutions. From the bustling streets of Los Angeles to the tech hubs of San Francisco, the signs of distress are increasingly visible, prompting urgent questions about the future of this iconic state. The homelessness epidemic, a state of emergency on the streets. California stands at the epicenter of the nation's homelessness crisis, a sobering reality that challenges its progressive image. The statistics are stark and, frankly, alarming. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development (HUD), California accounted for 30% of the entire nation's homeless population in 2024, with an estimated 521,399 individuals experiencing homelessness. This figure represents a tragic increase of 6.2% from the previous year, underscoring the escalating nature of the problem. What's even more distressing is that over 70% of California's homeless population is unsheltered, meaning they live on the streets, in vehicles, or in other places not meant for human habitation. This is significantly higher than the national average of around 40%. Cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Oakland bear the brunt of this crisis, with vast encampments becoming a disturbingly common sight. For instance, Los Angeles County alone recorded over 175,000 homeless individuals in 2024, a 9% increase from 2023. San Francisco, despite its smaller size, has one of the highest per capita rates of homelessness in the country, with an estimated 77,154 homeless individuals in 2024, a slight decrease, but still a profound challenge for a city of its affluence. The causes of this widespread homelessness are multifaceted and deeply entrenched. One of the primary drivers is the exorbitant cost of housing. California has some of the most expensive housing markets in the world, with median home prices in some areas exceeding $1 million. The median rent for a two-bedroom apartment in San Francisco can easily surpass $3,500 per month, while in Los Angeles, it hovers around $2,800. These prices are simply out of reach for many working-class individuals and families, especially those earning minimum wage. The state's minimum wage, while higher than the federal standard at $16 per hour as of January 2024, often isn't enough to secure stable housing in these high-cost areas. A person working full-time at minimum wage earns approximately $33,280 annually before taxes, which falls far short of the income needed to afford market-rate housing. Beyond housing costs, other critical factors contribute to the crisis. Lack of affordable mental health care and substance abuse treatment plays a significant role. A substantial portion of the homeless population struggles with mental health conditions and addiction, often self-medicating to cope with trauma and the harsh realities of street life. A study by the UCSF Benioff Homelessness and Housing Initiative in 2023 found that 75% of homeless adults in California reported experiencing a mental health condition, and 78% reported a substance use disorder at some point in their lives. The breakdown of social safety nets, insufficient wages, and the slow pace of building new affordable housing units further exacerbate the problem. The bureaucratic hurdles and community opposition, often referred to as NIMBYism, not in my backyard, to new housing developments also slowed down progress. The state has committed billions of dollars to addressing homelessness, with Governor Newsom allocating $15.3 billion since 2018 towards various initiatives, including Project Homekey, which converts hotels and motels into housing. However, the sheer scale of the crisis often seems to overwhelm these efforts, highlighting the need for more comprehensive, coordinated, and sustainable solutions. The human cost of this crisis is immeasurable, affecting not only the individuals experiencing homelessness, but also the fabric of communities, impacting public health, safety, and the overall quality of life for all Californians. The grip of poverty, a paradox in the Golden State. The narrative of California as a land of boundless opportunity clashes sharply with the pervasive reality of poverty that afflicts a significant portion of its population. Despite its immense wealth and a robust economy, California has one of the highest poverty rates in the nation when adjusted for the cost of living. The Supplemental Poverty Measure, SPM, which accounts for regional differences in the costs and necessities like housing and health care, reveals a more accurate and dire picture. In 2022, California's SPM rate was 13.2%, meaning approximately 5 million Californians were living in poverty. While this was a decrease from previous years, it still meant that California's SPM rate was among the highest in the U.S. and significantly higher than the national average of 12.4%. This paradox of prosperity and penury is a central challenge for the state. The causes of poverty in California are deeply intertwined with its high cost of living. Even with a relatively high minimum wage, many households struggle to make ends meet. A living wage calculation by MIT's Living Wage Calculator suggests that a single adult with no children in California needs to earn approximately $24.96 per hour to cover basic expenses. For a family of 2 adults and 2 children, both adults would need to earn around $34.45 per hour each to achieve a living wage, highlighting the significant gap between wages and the cost of living for many families. Another major contributor is income inequality. California exhibits one of the highest levels of income inequality in the U.S. The top 1% of earners in California take home an average of 26.4 times more income than the bottom 99%. This vast disparity creates a society where wealth is concentrated at the top, leaving many struggling at the bottom. The rise of the gig economy, while offering flexibility, often comes with precarious employment, lack of benefits, and unstable income, pushing many into vulnerable economic positions. The high cost of childcare, healthcare, and transportation further erodes the financial stability of low-income families. For instance, the average annual cost of infant care in California is over $16,000, which can consume a substantial portion of a low-income family's budget. Poverty disproportionately affects certain demographic groups. Racial and ethnic minorities, particularly Hispanic and Black communities, experience higher rates of poverty. In 2022, the SPM rate for Hispanic individuals in California was 17.2%, and for Black individuals, it was 16.6%, compared to 8.9% for white individuals. Children are also particularly vulnerable, with an estimated 1.4 million children living in poverty in California. The long-term consequences of childhood poverty are profound, impacting educational attainment, health outcomes, and future economic mobility, perpetuating a cycle of disadvantage. The state has implemented various programs to combat poverty, including CalFresh, food stamps, Medi-Cal, healthcare, and the California Earned Income Tax Credit, CALEITC. In 2022, the CALEITC provided an average credit of $640 to over 3.8 million low-income families and individuals. While these programs offer a crucial safety net, their effectiveness is often constrained by the sheer scale of the problem and the persistent high cost of living. Addressing poverty in California requires a multi-pronged approach that includes increasing affordable housing, raising the minimum wage to a living wage, expanding access to quality education and health care, and tackling systemic inequalities that perpetuate economic disadvantage. The failure to address poverty effectively not only leads to individual suffering, but also hinders the state's overall economic potential and social cohesion. The shadow of crime, eroding public safety and trust. The rise in crime rates across California has emerged as a significant concern, casting a shadow over communities and eroding public safety. While national trends show some fluctuations, California has experienced notable increases in certain categories of crime, particularly property crimes and in some areas, violent crimes. The perception of an increase in lawlessness is palpable for many residents, impacting their sense of security and trust in the system. According to the California Department of Justice, after a decline in the early 2010s, violent crime rates saw an upward trend in the latter half of the decade and into the early 2020s. While statewide violent crime decreased slightly by 5.7% in 2022 compared to 2021, it was still 8.9% higher than in 2019. Homicides, in particular, saw a concerning surge during the pandemic years, although they also showed a decrease of 6.1% in 2022. However, the long-term trend remains a concern. Property crimes, including burglaries, motor vehicle theft, and shoplifting, have been a more persistent challenge. In 2022, the property crime rate in California decreased by 6.2%, but it's important to note that this came after significant increases in previous years. Organized retail theft, often involving large groups of individuals ransacking stores, has garnered significant media attention and caused considerable losses for businesses. For instance, a 2023 report by the National Retail Federation estimated that retail theft cost businesses nationwide $112.1 billion in 2022, with California being a hotspot for such activity. Several factors are cited as contributing to the evolving crime landscape in California. One frequently debated issue is the impact of criminal justice reforms. Propositions like Proposition 47, 2014, which reclassified certain nonviolent felonies as misdemeanors, e.g. drug possession and petty theft under $950, and Proposition 57, 2016, which increased parole opportunities for nonviolent felons, have been subject of intense scrutiny. Proponents argue these reforms aim to reduce mass incarceration and address racial disparities in the justice system, while critics contend they have emboldened criminals and contributed to an increase in property crime. Statistical analyses on the direct causal link between these propositions and specific crime trends are complex and often yield mixed results, but the public perception often connects them to the current challenges. Another significant factor is the socioeconomic context. As discussed, homelessness and poverty can exacerbate crime rates. Individuals facing extreme hardship may resort to crime as a means of survival. The mental health crisis, particularly among the homeless population, also plays a role, as individuals struggling with untreated mental illness may be more prone to violent behavior or become victims of crime themselves. The availability of firearms, despite strict gun control laws in California, also remains a contentious issue in discussions about violent crime. The interconnected web, how homelessness, poverty, and crime converge. It's crucial to understand that homelessness, poverty, and crime in California are not isolated phenomena, but rather deeply interconnected challenges, forming a vicious cycle that perpetuates hardship and instability. Each problem exacerbates the others, creating a complex web that requires comprehensive and coordinated solutions. Poverty fuels homelessness. The direct link is undeniable. When individuals and families cannot afford the exorbitant cost of housing, they are pushed into homelessness. Low wages, stagnant income, and a high cost of living mean that even a minor financial setback, a job loss, a medical emergency, or a rent increase can easily tip a household into homelessness. Research has consistently shown that a significant portion of the homeless population was previously housed but lost their homes due to economic hardship. For example, a 2023 study found that 47% of homeless individuals in California cited economic hardship as a primary reason for their homelessness. Homelessness exacerbates crime, both as victims and perpetrators. Individuals experiencing homelessness are disproportionately victims of crime, facing violence, theft, and exploitation on the streets. Without safe shelter, they are incredibly vulnerable. Conversely, some individuals experiencing homelessness may engage in petty crimes, such as shoplifting or panhandling, out of desperation to survive, leading to arrests and further entanglement in the justice system, which makes exiting homelessness even more challenging. The presence of large homeless encampments can also lead to increased calls for service for local law enforcement, straining resources and sometimes creating friction with residents. A report by the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, LAHSA, found that 36% of homeless individuals reported being a victim of a violent crime in the past year. Poverty and crime are also directly linked. Economic hardship is a well-established risk factor for criminal activity. Individuals living in poverty, especially those with limited opportunities, may be more susceptible to engaging in criminal behavior. Lack of access to education, job training, and stable employment can lead to feelings of hopelessness and desperation, which can push individuals toward illicit activities. Furthermore, communities with higher rates of poverty often experience higher rates of crime due to a lack of resources, social support systems, and community cohesion. For example, neighborhoods with high unemployment rates often correlate with higher property crime rates. This intricate relationship creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Poverty leads to homelessness, which can increase vulnerability to crime, and entanglement with the criminal justice system can make it even harder to escape poverty and secure housing. This cycle disproportionately affects marginalized communities, perpetuating systemic inequalities.